413, Unit 3. And name of the topic is White Sargasso Sea. Written by Jean Wright. Jeanrhys. Right. So, White Sargasso Sea. Let's first discuss about the poet, the writer, whose name is called as Jean Wright, was born in the year of 1890 to 1979. He was a you can say that Dominican born British writer. Um, so renowned for her evocative and often hunting work, are called as influential and often hunting works. She is best known for a novel which is written in the year of 1966, and the name of the novel is called as a White Sargasso Sea, right? White Sargasso Sea. So it is nothing but a prequel to Charlotte Bronte. You know Charlotte Bronte? So Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre that reimagines the story of Bertha Mason, the mad woman in the Arctic. So White Sargasso Sea, if you see that, the plot is set in Jamaica in the early 1900s and explores the life of Antoinette Cosway. Antoinette Cosway. Who is she? She is a young Creole woman of a mixed race. The novel that shows into the themes of what? Colonialism. What do you mean by colonialism? That's called as foreign rulers. So, not only the themes of colonialism, racial and cultural identity, and the personal struggles of the protagonist. What do you mean by protagonist? The main character or the main hero, you can say. So, Antoinette's early life is mad. Mad means what? Destructive. So, is mad by why it is destroyed. It is destroyed because of neglect, societal expectations, and the tension between whom? Her white European heritage and her Caribbean environment. So, after her arranged marriage to a British man, we are talking about Antoinette. So, young woman, after her arranged marriage to a British man, she is transported to Jamaica, is the name of the place where her mental and emotional instability turns back to worse. The novel that explores Antoinette's sense of displacement. Sense of displacement means feel separated from the place. Second is called as isolation. Isolation means what? Living alone. So, as well as you can talk about that psychological impact of colonialism. There is also psychology that you are ruled by foreigners. So, Jean writes a description of the relationship between Antoinette and her husband, so who is not been named in the novel, whose name is not been mentioned, but often identified as Mr. Rochester, Rochester, Mr. Rochester. So you would find out Mr. Lobster or Mr. Rochester, who is the love interest from Jane Eyre. So it provides a complex description of love, control, and madness. So if you think of this particular novel, White Sargasso Sea is filled with what? The complex description, complex descriptions of what? Love, madness, and control. So you also find out many other things like colonialism and its effects. Why colonialism and its effects? Because the novel describes the impacts of foreign rulers on personal and social identity, and describing what how it nurtures, how it fosters, how it takes care division, separation, alienation, and internalized operation, which is called as a control. Second is called as the identity and dress. When we talk about identity and dress, we understand Antoinette's struggle. Antoinette struggled with her identity because she is separated from her place. She lives isolated. So, and it is shaped by what? Her mixed race heritage that reflects nothing but the complex or difficult racial dynamics in post colonial Jamaica. Right. Then we also find out madness is also provided. Madness, Jean Rice examines the themes of madness, particularly when you say how societal pressure, isolation, and emotional trauma that contribute to a person's psychological unraveling, isn't it? So it harms. Next is called as gender and power. You can also say that gender and power. The novel critically examines the position of women in where patriarchal society. So, especially in terms of what control within relationships, and societal expectations. So, these are the themes that you would find out in this particular novel, right? And therefore, it is known as a very important novel. So, White Sargasso Sea is considered a landmark, a kind of a symbol in a feminist and post-colonial literature. Jean writes, you can say that reimagines what? The mad woman in the attic. When you say that mad woman reimagines the mad woman in the attic, it means uh, Jean Rice thinks about Charlotte Brown's written Jane Eyre, isn't it? So the writer or the novelist reimagines the mad woman in the Arctic through offering nothing but a sympathetic kindness view of Bertha Mason. Who is Bertha Mason? Bertha Mason is a character, right? So sympathetic beauty of Bertha Mason, and exploring her backstory. So she is a kind of a character, often relegated or reduced to a villain in Brown's Jane Eyre. So the novel also reflects what Rai's own experiences growing up in the Caribbean and her exploration of themes of displacement and cultural identity. I hope you get a kind of a importance in this particular topic called White Sargasso Sea. First thing, it is a means kind of a novel which was already been found out in a kind of a novel called as Charlotte Brown's Jane Eyre, isn't it? Second is called as in Charlotte Brown's Jane Eyre, we find out the two character, and in that two character means one who is mad, one who is isolated, one who is displaced. There is also another character called as an antagonist, who is called as a main villain. We have also protagonist, we have also antagonist in that particular when it's a novel. Likewise, White Sargasso Seas, which is written by Jean Rice. So also present the same kind of a thing. That is the first thing. Second thing is called as, therefore it is called as a sequel. Prequel we call it. Sequel, you understand? Sequel. Like you talk about Chris 1, Chris 2, Koi Mil Gaya, Chris 1, Chris 2, isn't it? So that's called as a sequel. But prequel is called as something which is already made, and you wrote another novel which reflects the same kind of information. Therefore, we can say prequel. Second reason is you find out in Jean ad means Rise written White Sargasso Sea is nothing but indicating to the writer's experience. Writer himself or herself means growing up in the Caribbean and her exploration of themes of displacement. She also got separated and she also lost her cultural identity. Hence, you can say that it is her experience too. So, in that case, the importance we find out in the title as well as the novel. Next, it's called as a Jean. When you talk about Jean Rice writing, it is known for its lyrical and fragmented style. Fragmented called as a separate style. Often, engaging stream of consciousness techniques to depict the disorienting inner worlds of our characters. The atmosphere of White Sargasso Sea is often like a dream or often dreamlike, with the rides capturing the tropical setting that called as the tropical areas. The background is tropical areas and psychological unraveling with evocative prose influencing prose. So White Sargasso Sea is a powerful exploration of what? Race, culture, and the emotional complexity or emotional difficulties of foreign rulers and gendered power dynamics. So one side you are saying foreign rulers, the other side it's called the outsiders and the insider. Outsider is the foreign ruler, insider it's called as a patriarchal society, male-dominated society, where they try to control the woman, isn't it? So they try to show the kind of possessiveness, isn't it? So power dynamics. It is often regarded as one of the most important works of the 20th century. So, and nothing but a cornerstone of post-colonial literature. Again, let me tell you, as we are reading the core 13, so unit 1 that also indicates post-colonial. The second unit means unit 2 that also represents post-colonial, and this one too is also indicating the post-colonial era and the literature of that period. Okay, so what we will draw from this particular unit actually, we are going to, this is nothing but called as an introduction. So in this unit, we will definitely draw Jean Rice's contribution to the feminist movement and also Jean Rice's mixed cultural background and identity. But at the same time, we also talk about Charlotte Brown's fiction and Jean Rice's novel as a prequel of Jane Eyre. So in that case, Jean Rice, Jane Eyre. Jean Rice and Jane Eyre. Now, if you talk about Jean Rice, like I pointed, 1890 to 1979. So he was a writer from the post-colonial period, which refers to the time after many countries who gained independence from colonial powers. So Jean Rice became famous for her contribution to the feminist movement, which requires promote equality between men and women. So through her writing, Jean Rice created strong female characters who were declarative, confident, and determined. So, and represented the struggles women faced, especially women from different racial backgrounds. So Jean Rice wrote about important social issues, including women's rights, that were often ignored or that were often misunderstood. At the end of the 19th century, if you look at that, when Reich was writing, the first wave of feminism, the first wave of feminism means the first part which is contributed or women's contribution. So the first wave of feminism was focused on issues like basic needs. So what are the basic needs? You can talk about food, clothes, shelter. So the first one is called the like food. Second one is called the equality and the ability to have children. So, however, Rice highlighted a different set of concerns in her work, like you can say individual identity. So, how women see and express themselves. Second is called as a financial independence. So, where you talk about earning their own money. And the third one is called as equality in marriage. So, what do you find out that equality in marriage? Having equal rights in a relationship. In her story, Jean Wright showed women who were searching for freedom in their own ways. In White Sargassy, for example, you could find out she chose Bertha Manson, right? Bertha Mason, a character from Charlotte Bronx, Jane Eyre, as her protagonist. As her protagonist, it's called as a main character. So, Rice brought Bertha is a nothing but a Creole woman. When you say that Creole woman, what do you mean by Creole? Creole is known as a person of mixed European and African descent. European and African descent. So, into the early 20th century world, to highlight the suffering of women in marriage. Now, that is why you find out that what? Bertha Mason. So, who is Bertha Mason? Bertha Mason is nothing but called as a means a protagonist in Jane Eyre's or Charlotte Bronte's written novel called as a Jane Eyre. The same character you find out in a White Sargasso. And when the writer narrates or describes the character, stated that she is nothing but a mixed one, mixed race. How you call it a mixed race? Now, when somebody who have a father and mother, two different gender. So here you would find out European and African descent. Now, when you talk about Jean Wright, focused on the what role and status of women in society. She started a conversation about how powerlessness and financial dependency in all areas of life, whether it is in personal, social, and emotional relationship that create insecurity and suffering for women. Through her novel, you can say that what White Sargasso Sea, Jean Wright reimagines who? Reimagines Bertha Mason, a character from Jane Eyre, like I told you, and gives her the name called as a Antoinette Mason. Did you see? Now here the name of the character is called as Bertha Mason in a Jane Eyre novel or Charlotte Bronte's written Jane Eyre novel, and looking at the kind of a character Bertha Mason, Jean Wright also created another character called Antoinette Mason, right? Antoinette Mason. So Jean Wright portrays Antoinette as a woman who was labeled as a man before she even had the chance to express her desire or emotion, forcing her to live a life confined to a room. Rice uses her story to show what the existential loss. What do you mean by existential loss? That called as the loss of means living, the loss of meaning or purpose in life. You forget that. What is the purpose and what is the meaning of life? So when you lose that purpose and meaning of life, so definitely that is known as existential loss, right? So not only existential loss, you can also find out the cultural loss. And in cultural loss, the one or the loss of one's cultural identity that Antoinette experiences. So two things you would find out: cultural loss and existential loss. And that's what Antoinette experiences. Rai herself lived in a Jean Rai herself lived in a mixed culture life. That's why her character is also same. And even when you find out, she found out the same kind of a character in Charlotte Bronte. So it is shaped by the struggle of growing up with parents from the different backgrounds, born on August 24, 1890. So to a Welsh father. So who? Means I'm talking about Jean Rice. Born to a Welsh father. When you say that Welsh, what do you mean by Welsh father? A doctor from Wales. And a Creole mother. So even mother is also Creole. What do you mean by Creole? Creole is called as a Caribbean. So from the Caribbean, she grew up in Rossum. So who is Rossum? That's called as a Dominica. Her father, William Rees, or William Rees Williams, moved to Dominica and married Minna Williams, a Creole woman. Rice inherited elements from both cultural backgrounds, the Welsh culture from the British father and the Creole culture from her mother. So it means you got that what? Britain, and you got the culture from Caribbean, isn't it? So, and she became a third generation Dominican Creole. The mix of cultural identities influenced Rice's works, giving her a unique perspectives on issues like ethnicity, power, self-determination, and independence. Isn't it? So Jean Rice faced a life full of struggles with her early experiences that shapes her personality. Growing up, she had a difficult relationship with whom? With her mother, who is a Caribbean, so a Creole woman, which made her feel emotionally separate and uncomfortable. Why? Now, because she is separated. Rice describes her mother as a cold, and the lack of bonding between them caused emotional pain that Rice expressed in her writings. So, her mother's coldness means cold as a street, and she doesn't have the emotion for her daughter. That indicates Rice feel like a stranger in her own home. And this sense of loss and emptiness is reflected in much of her work, even what you feel that you present on your paper. Rice also lived in a time when the world was changing around her due to the effects of what Abolition Act of 1834, which marked the end of slavery in the British colonies. Now you understood that at that time colonialism was there. Colonialism in Britain, if you talk about that, you would find out people are working under the foreign rulers and they became slave. They became slave or slavery, you can say that. The author stated that it was going to end the slavery of the British colonies. After this law, which law? Abolition Act of 1834. Right. So after this law, the former slave owners, part of the white aristocracy, those people who are debonair or you can consider that rich, so they generally called as the slave owners. So they faced financial difficulties, and this created a society where there was a loss of identity for many people, particularly the colonial inhabitants. Colonial inhabitants means what? Now, people who are the ruler. So, who struggled to find their place in a new world without slavery. Then you find out somebody who made a quote here also, Elijah Olusegun. Elijah Olusegun, who quotes a significant point from the Kenneth Ramchand, which highlight the social and economic deprivation that affected the majority of people in the West Indies. Especially after slavery ended, this was coupled with the racial consciousness and cynicism faced by those in power after the colonies gained independence. So you would find out that even if the act was removed, still the problem was there. because slavery system was removed. After that, another system came out that called the racial consciousness. You find out the differentiation between color, black and white. Next is called as a negative minded thought. Wright's personal experiences growing up in a post-slavery society made her aware of the importance of identity, both national and individual. The struggle to define oneself was a theme in her writing, especially in White Sargasso Sea, where the protagonist, or called the main character, Antoinette Mason, a Creole woman, suffers from a loss of identity, reflecting Jean Wright's own feelings of confusion and separation or living alone. Wright's childhood was influenced by both the slavery system and cultural changes in the West Indies. After the abolition of, or after the removal of slavery, many people in the Caribbean were searching for their new identities, free from the painful history of the past. So Bernard Ella Godwin Rice Williams in 1890. Bernard Ella Gwendolyn Rice Williams in 1890. Rice left her homeland, Dominica, at the age of 16 to go to England. Why? Now for higher education. And she continues in the Perse School, PRSU, Perse School in Cambridge, but she faced severe, ragging, bullying. Why? Now due to her non-British accent, her looks and her intelligence. And this harassment, this bullying led to her leave the school and joined the Academy of Dramatic Art. She left the school and she joined the Academy of Dramatic Art in the year of 1909. So her difficult time at Perse School contributed to her feelings of isolation and loss of identity, which are explored in her later work. He desires to become a writer. Combined with her painful experiences, she created a foundation for much of her later work. Wright struggles with what self-worth, understanding the importance of herself, identity, identify herself, isolation, and these are reflected in characters like Antoinette or Antoinette. So, who face similar challenges? Jean Wright's personal relationship also influenced her writing. She had an affair. You understand? So she had an affair with an Englishman whose name is called as a Lancelot Hugh Smith. Lancelot Hugh Smith. But the relationship ended in what? Sadness or grief. Although he provided, Hugh Smith provided Jean Wright with the financial support, it was more her emotional dependency on him that left her feeling powerless. Wright's relationship with the maid often reflected her emotional struggles and reinforced her feeling of powerlessness and emptiness. We'll keep till this, huh? Next class, rest of